All right, welcome into Big Hitters Only. We're recording on Tuesday morning. This is going to be a 3-interview podcast. We're having Andrew Jones of TarHeel247 on sports, TarHeel 247 on right now. And then we're going to have Kyle Peterson after him. He's going to talk deep on football, roster management, and transfer portal. And then we're bringing on Mike Hardison to dive into some basketball stuff along with his thoughts on football. First, Rowback hoodies, Rowback polos, anything on Rowback, 20% off with the promo code BHO20. All right, what's up, Andrew? How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm great. I know it's a super busy time. We appreciate your time. Let's get right into
No,
it.
appreciate you having me.
Andrew covers all things UNC football and basketball, so I wanted to pick his brain on some football stuff. We'll get to a little basketball stuff. All right, season's done. It's in the past. Let's talk what's next. Let's talk the future of UNC football under the Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi regime here. Signing day was last week. It's now kind of getting to the transfer portal, players leaving, meetings happening. Give us a general thought of kind of where this is heading in December, heading into January 2nd when the portal opens.
They're fleshing things out. I think a lot of it, Ross, is that there was a lot for them to learn, and I do think that Bill actually hit on it, hinted a little bit, but late October, early November, that there were some things that they had learned. So I believe there was a lot they learned, and a big part of the process right now is combining, going over what was learned with what they have right now so they can figure out what they want moving forward in the program. I don't think a lot of these conversations with players were as open and shut as a lot of people think. I think that there were significant discussions with some guys about how they fit and how they fit maybe not just next year, but if there's a 2-year plan for them, because kids do want plans these days, even though there's a constant movement. I think a lot of kids would rather not move. If they can go to one place and stay there and get paid and be developed, they would be happier that way. So those conversations have happened. There's also conversations going on with the staff and all levels of staffing, right on down to probably whoever's working in the cafeteria, fixing food for the kids, because I do think the attention to detail is significant in this program, even though it didn't always appear that way on the field this year. But I think that's a big motivation moving forward. I think that's a point of emphasis to kind of tie up the loose ends that they didn't know would be loose ends during this past year. And because of it, I think you'll see a tighter operation moving forward. But these 4 weeks before the portal formally opens is a huge part of that, because when it does open, whatever staffing changes he needs to make, he needs to get those done. Because one of the reasons that they had trouble last year in the portal was because they started late, but a lot of kids had no idea who their position coaches were going to be because he was really slow building the staff. So I think that's one of the things that was learned. And I think that when January 2nd opens and kids can formally be talked to about possibly coming to North Carolina, they want to have everything in place for them.
Okay, let's step back. You said what was learned, what they learned. What are some of the main things that they did poorly last offseason when they got hired, transfer portal, spring practice, training camp, into the season that you think will look better? Try to move a little bit off the on the field stuff more into like roster building that you think they kind of have learned and will improve on right now, January, and into spring training.
I think the number one thing is, if you think about Bill Belichick's 50 years in football before he arrived in Chapel Hill and Michael Lombardi's 40 plus years, how often did they ever look at film, college film, and thought about those college players on the film in relation to college football? They never did. They would always watch film looking at one or two guys to see how they translated to the NFL. So I think one of the things that they were way behind on when they arrived was watching players, whether they were transfer portal kids or even high school kids, projecting and understanding that they're projecting to college football, not the NFL. And there are different things that you look at, and they're going to be less refined kids. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. we saw them make some of those adjustments during the course of the season. Case in point, Damon June was 7th on the depth chart going into TCU. He turned out to be their best running back. Eden Buchanan was a freshman offensive lineman that arrived in June, and he started the TCU game, and they realized, yeah, he looks great in practice. He fits all the specs, but he's completely overwhelmed. So I think they learned a lot about personnel decisions, how to gauge, how to sort of look ahead with kids and project. And that's probably the number one thing that they learned. And because of that, I think they're going to do a much better job in the portal this time around. The other thing is communication and messaging in the building. And it goes to everything from talking to a player about what's expected of them, what they need to do better, what they're good at, having more general conversations, creating a better vibe in the building. The reports that came out in October about the building were very accurate, and they know that, and they made efforts to change that since then because they understood and recognized that there was an issue. So if you can watch film and evaluate a lot better, which I think that they will, and you have a much better messaging in the building, you're going to have a better overall vibe. And because of those two reasons, I think there's a reason Carolina fans should be fairly optimistic moving forward that there will be improvements in those areas.
Yeah, and you're referencing the bye week after Clemson when things kind of came to a head. I mean, a lot of it on the media side of things, a lot of sources talking, and just a wild time. I know we were talking a lot during that week and week as well. Let's go back. So, yeah, I think you have to have a better idea what they want and what they need and what fits and how they project a freshman to get better as a sophomore, or how a high school player could or won't fit in next season. So, all right, we have a 4-star freshman or we have a 3-star freshman. He's not going to be ready, so we need to get a transfer portal player to fill that gap in the meanwhile. Yeah. What do you make of them signing 39 players and spending a reported $10 million on the 2026 class? Like, obviously, that is buying them time, building a base, hoping some of those players can contribute next year. But honestly, looking towards the 27-28 season with so much money and resources put into signing and then developing players that could transfer after 1 year. Yeah. What does that tell you about this team, where it's heading, I guess, that big class?
I think it says that they learned a lot about projecting high school kids, and they really like the idea of development. They like to bring in some of these blank canvases and create something off of each one. And that's why I wrote a column last week saying, hey, the signing day was sort of a reset for the program. They had 1 year. It was a bad year in a lot of ways, but a lot was learned, a lot was gained from it if they could apply it properly moving forward. And they very strongly believe in their player development. They think that they develop players better than anybody else on the planet, and I can understand why they would. They've got great track records in that sense. But what are those track records with high school kids? We're going to find out. I think part of 39 kids is you throw a bunch against the wall and see who sticks. They'd be thrilled if half these kids end up being contributors. And if they are, they're going to develop the crap out of them. And they think that they can get them to the point where they're pretty high-level contributors by the back end of next year. I've been going over all the true freshmen from this year, and it's interesting how as some guys got shots in the middle of the year and then they were pulled, they didn't play much more. Then you've got guys like Javion Butts, who they saw him develop enough that they played him a lot the last 4 games of the season on defense and special teams. He still keeps his red shirt, but they thought he could help them later on in the year because they developed him. So if they think that they have that next year, and the last 4 weeks of the season, they're putting a lot more dudes out there, they're building toward 2027, in my opinion. I think that they may not come out and say it, although Lombardi could type out an email to the boosters on that crappy typewriter is and tell them it's a rebuild toward 2027. But I think that that's actually what they're doing. And I think it's an admittance that they learned a lot and didn't know as much as they thought going in.
Yeah, I mean, you have to plan that you're going to be there for 5 years, right? You're planning, we're going to be here for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So you can't be like, all right, we have to get our shit together in 1 year because if not, we're going to get fired. You have to kind of like expect to stay there. That's why they're starting to build, and in doing that, they buy themselves some time if they show progress in 26 and hey, we're getting better. We got some transfers in. We figured this out. We figured that out. And we have 39 players who we brought in We think 10 can contribute this year. We think next year, 20 of those guys will be ready to play. And look, we're going to bring in 25 more freshmen, and it's going to be a developmental program. That was the whole idea when they hired them, the developmental program. So, I
Yes.
mean, no matter what they think, yeah, like you said, like the goal in their minds is, all right, 27, we may be a little better than 28, maybe is like the year. They might not get to that point. So let's get to that with the transfer portal. You know the roster way better than I do. I've been kind of checked out on actual roster stuff. I know I hate to say that as a podcast host, but what are the main needs in the transfer portal? What can fans expect? Like, all right, they have to nail these positions. Obviously, quarterback and OC, we can start there, but tell me what you foresee them spending money on and prioritizing now and come January 2nd.
I think a big part of the answer to that question is how they did in retention with some of the position groups. They have a lot of defensive backs and a lot of defensive linemen. And the one area of this team that really showed genuine gradual improvement was the defensive line. Bob Diaco did a great job with those kids. And they have a lot of them that have eligibility remaining. And if they could keep the majority of them, they don't need to go out and overspend on defensive linemen, which they had to do last year in the portal. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they need to go out and get 2 linebackers. I'm not sure they have anybody in the program that they trust to play 800 snaps next year. And they're not sure of that either. And they don't want to miss this portal period and go into the spring and figure it out then, because there's no opportunity to go find an Andrew Simpson in April next year like they did this past April. I think otherwise you're looking at wide receiver. They need some dudes that can take the top off the defense, and they absolutely need a quarterback. Gio's banged up. He's going to be rehabbing here for a while. If he sticks around, they have to make a decision there. They have to have a hard conversation with him that he might be a backup next year, maybe an expensive backup, but he might be a backup. They need to go look for somebody that can be a starting quarterback. And if Gio beats him out, Gio beats him out. If Autori Newkirk beats him out, he does. If Baker stays and he beats him out, he does. But they need to go spend money on a quarterback who's competent, that they believe that as soon as he arrives, he could start a game for him. They must do that. So I would say wide receiver with some and tight end too, by the way. They weren't very strong at tight end. If you're going to have a short passing game and you don't use your tight ends, you're really limiting yourself. So tight end with some speed at wide receiver, a couple of linebackers who can make plays, and they got to go out and get a quarterback. They have to spend the money. They can't go into next season in the same situation at quarterback they were this past year. They must address that. I think that they will, but it's going to be a challenge if he's still there and if the operation is still kind of what we saw. It's going to be a hard sell to get a kid who's a pretty good quarterback to come in.
Yeah, we talked about this. I've already recorded, one of the other interviews on this podcast with Kyle. We go deep on like kind of the OC and the quarterback, and you have to kind of bring them in together, or at least get an OC you think can attract a quarterback. Does Belichick, kind of give the offense to a younger guy that brings in a new system, or is he going to be stubborn and stick with what he wants to run? Those are all questions we don't really know the answer to, and I think it'll be very, depending on who they get, that'll kind of indicate how that went and what Belichick wants to do. Any idea of a timeline for OC or Kitchens or what that looks like?
Yeah. The people that I talk to aren't interested in divulging a whole lot. All they're saying is that nothing has been set in stone. So they're either extensive conversations, they're waiting to make an announcement, maybe somebody slides into another spot. But the one thing I have been told that's been fairly consistent is that they do go bring other assistant coaches in and to replace some people on the staff. They want to go a little bit more college heavy. They were maybe a little too NFL heavy with this group. They need some more college people on the staff. So if they do make a change at coordinator, I see them getting somebody who spent some time in college here for a while coming in. Maybe not someone who's kind of gone back and forth and dabbled like Freddie has in his career. They want to go a little bit more college heavy, maybe run a little bit more college offense as well, have some more tweaks in the offense that are college-like than just straight NFL type stuff. So that's about all I really know for sure right now. There's a lot of tight-lipped stuff going on. I also think you got to be very careful about what you report, what is said from the program. I think the program has learned some lessons about a few things, and that's one of them. But I do suspect there will be some movement, and the movement will all be in place by the time the portal opens. If it doesn't, then it's a massive miscalculation by the staff, because every kid it's going to be speed dating on steroids. every kid's going to want to know who their position coach is and how that guy can help them, because Belichick's not going to be in every position group all day, every day. So they need to be able to sell that guy in the position group as much as they sell Bill Belichick.
Yeah, they need to make, they have almost, less than a month now to make some decisions that will decide which transfers they can get and who will be allured to come to Carolina. Guys, make sure you check out Andrew Jones on Twitter. Also check him out on TarHeel247, the UNC team site, and message boards on the 24/7 Sports Network. Does some great stuff there. Cranking out content. I was looking at last night, man, off that basketball game. Y'all had like 7 or 8 articles on the boards there pinned. You and Noah are crushing it along with David Sisk. All right, guys. All right, Andrew, sorry. Money. I mean, we talked about this too. Like, what they're gonna have to spend a lot on quarterback, but like, what have you heard anything about like how much money they're gonna have to spend? How are these contracts done? Is the $10 million on the signing class, is that all going to be paid in the first year? Like, what can you tell us about how this money is getting figured out? Because we don't know what is real with these contracts and how much they actually have.
That's probably the hardest thing about covering this stuff right now, is understanding the money and what's real. We know the Geo contract. A lot of these contracts that were 2-year deals were signed before the House settlement. So how much that doesn't really apply to revenue share, but does it apply to revenue share? And I don't think a lot of people even know for sure. I think they're still learning that. But on top of that, Ross, I think the biggest thing for this group is how much did they have to overpay to keep guys? I think that they probably were going to have to overpay to keep guys like Melkart. If they want to keep guys like Damon June, they would probably have to overpay for some of those guys because they've experienced a pretty hectic year, a pretty chaotic year. And even as well as some of them played and maybe exceeded expectations, there are going to be other opportunities out there. And do they want to go through another season under the climate that they just went through? A lot of that is something that they probably had to discuss with a lot of these kids. And whereas Mac was able to get Omarion Hampton and Kamen Rucker to take hometown discounts, and Omarion took almost a third from Carolina what he could have gotten elsewhere, what he was offered elsewhere. That was a different type of situation. An in-state kid, and in Kamen's case, a kid that came from out of nowhere, and Carolina gave him a shot, so he was loyal. A lot of these kids don't have the same sentiment. They're not in the same situation, and they may have to overpay to keep them. So that will determine how much they have to go out and spend, which is why I don't think the volume of numbers is as big a deal with the portal this year as it is getting the right guys, getting linebackers that can step in and play, getting a tight end that can step in and play, a receiver, and you have to spend on a quarterback. So balancing out keeping the guys that you've invested in time and teaching already, maybe overpaying a little bit, and then going and getting the right pieces is probably their approach right now, because we still don't know how many kids are going to lose to the portal. But I don't think that they should be as concerned about those numbers. They got to go out and get some quality from the portal, because they're brought in 39 dudes. They're going to retain, 30 kids at least. So what do they add to the program that can help them compete against a very difficult schedule next year? To me, that's going to be the most interesting thing that we glean over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, and so retention, and that's huge for culture. Like, you need players who kind of know how things are doing, who can be some leaders. Like, you don't want to bring in a whole new team every year. You, like, retain the defensive line guys, Tyler Thompson and Melkart, and some cornerbacks, defensive backs that can help you contribute. Sounds like there's going to be some retention on the offensive side with those skill players, but also the side of things like the offense sucked. Like, you don't want to retain too many because you need to bring in better players. So that's where, spending money.
By retaining kids, you're telling kids that are not in the portal or that are in the portal and haven't come to Chapel Hill, haven't made a decision. Hey, you know what? It's not that bad here because look at all these kids that are staying.
Yeah.
Especially ones that had success. Like Melkart is massive because you could say, look, that guy could go anywhere. He came from Delaware. He's not a North Carolina kid. He had no ties before, and he's staying, so he believes in the process, so you should too. They need to overpay so they can also tell kids in the portal that he can sell the North Carolina to kids in the portal.
Yeah, but you also got to think these agents are shopping their players around to try to get a raise for them at Carolina, or look, get them paid elsewhere. So it's a different world now where an agent can sell his players to 45 other teams to try to get a raise and get his client more money. It's just a nasty time.
You know what's a really weird thing the agents are doing now is they are reaching out to sports writers and asking us to write feature stories on their guys.
Yeah.
because they want to have that link, that clip to show other schools, especially guys that have maybe had a little bit of trouble at a certain school. They're selling those guys pretty hard trying to get the feature stories. So they're not just working other schools, they're working the media. They're trying to find every little angle they can to make their clients look a little bit better, which is a fascinating thing that I never would have projected 5 years ago.
And yeah, you're able to get some quotes maybe in a different way, but you're
Yeah.
also the journalistic ethics of like, why am I promoting this player that may not be worthy of a story or profile?
Got to go through the process, man. If I'm going to do a feature
Yeah.
story on a kid, got to go through the program.
All right, we'll get you out of here, guys. Remember, we have 2 more interviews coming on with Kyle, season ticket holder and a Chapel Hill resident who kind of gives a fan perspective, and Mike Hardison, who's been on the podcast a bunch, especially last year. BHO20 at Rowback. Get you some Rowback gear, BHO20. All right, Andrew, give me your elevator pitch on what you like or don't like about this basketball team. You've been to nearly every game, if not all. You've seen them play a lot. Break it down for us, and maybe an angle we don't know yet if we're not at these games and in the press room.
That's to find an angle that people don't know. They've kind of hashed over a lot of stuff already. What I like about this team is that it's getting better, and they show flashes where they're really, really good. And I think they're only short flashes, and I think there's a really good chance they become longer flashes as the season goes on. We saw the other night what happens when a couple guys hit threes, and boom, they distance themselves from Georgetown right away. I think there's more of that to come from this team. But they do have to get better in a couple of areas. I think the one thing they learned in these last 4 games, which is really impressive to me, is I had written and said 2 weeks ago, they're not going to get any beefier, but they can get nastier. They got nastier in these last 4 games, and you're starting to see consistent nastiness and outward emotion from guys like Henry, Vessar, and that spreads on to other dudes. And then they're going to bring in a guy here in a few weeks that plays that way all the time in Seth Trimble. So Seth is going to walk into a situation where he's more enhancing where they are instead of lifting them up. And he's going to walk into a situation where he's not the only voice. Other voices have emerged. So I think that there's a tremendous amount of continuity on this team. I think there's great chemistry. They can beat you a lot of different ways. They have enough depth. And we've seen Hubert. One of the knocks on him is that he doesn't trust his players that much, something that he needs to grow into. We've seen him trust some guys a little bit here, particularly Derek Dixon in the last couple of games. Maybe Hubert a couple of years ago would have pulled him and put Kyan back in there, but no, he left Derek out there, and he was integral in them winning the last 2 games. So Hubert feeling his team, learning his team, trusting his team is a big time thing. And that's probably, to me, one of the most important aspects of this club because they have a lot of room to grow. And if Hubert does things the right way and allows them to grow, I think they have a chance to be a really, really good team in March.
Kudos to Hubert. I mean, a lot of new players, so there's a lot of coaching behind the scenes to get this team ready and playing together. It's not always easy. It doesn't always work, if we've seen in the past. It's not like it's the most athletic, or I mean, it is very talented, but it's not like the most athletic jump off the court type team. So he definitely has earned his money coaching this season. I also like how you kind of know what you're going to get now from Vesar and Caleb Wilson. They are producing relatively the same amount every single game. They've been awesome. And then if you can just get a little bit more from the perimeter and make some shots. I mean, I think this team, you have the inside and the paint kind of figured out, and they're playing. I love how hard both those guys play, Wilson and Vesar. If Dixon hits a couple shots, Kyan kind of hits a couple shots. You get some stuff from Luka, Stevenson. There's a lot of options and a lot of room for improvement. And you just add Seth Trimble in. He takes you up another level with defense, some leadership, and some playmaking. It's exciting.
And he's an athlete. You're right. They're not super athletic, which means when he calls sets, and sometimes he overcalls sets. I was on the baseline in Fort Myers, and Michigan State was calling out every play. So they maybe have to integrate more things into their sets, maybe run a lot more 2-man. They think run a lot of 2-man because there's so many good passers on this team. But when they're running called stuff, they have to be exquisite because they're not super athletic. So they have to screen real well. They have to come off screens real well. They have to catch and shoot, be ready to shoot when they get the ball in the perimeter because they're not going to have some athletic advantages against some of the teams they play in an improved ACC. It's a lot better than it was last year. There are a lot more stumbling blocks in the league. So I think that if this team can get fully refined in how they execute stuff that Hubert wants, they have a chance to be really, really good in March. There's a lot to like. There's still some question marks. I don't think anybody's saying this club's going to cut down the nets in April or anything like that. But they have the potential to play for a long time in March. And however they go from here to if they can elevate past that, we'll see. They're going to have to start hitting the three, Ross.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are not hitting. If you take away Henry and Derek Dixon, they're shooting 28% from three. That's not going to win a lot of games, especially against quality opponents.
I was just going to say that I think they're getting good opportunities too. They're getting open threes. Like I think because of how much gravity Wilson and Vasar pull, like they're getting good shots. They're just not knocking them down at the clip you'd like to see. All right, Andrew, I said I'd keep you 20. I keep you 25 because you're an in-depth, long-winded human being. Follow Andrew on Twitter, AJ TarHeel247. Check out TarHeel247 on the 24/7 Sports Network. We appreciate your time, Andrew. I will be at the game next Tuesday, East Tennessee.
Right, I'll see you there.
I hope to be there. We'll see if it's a press box appearance or not. I'll have to talk to RL, and I need to see RL. That guy gives me life. But really appreciate your time, man.
I'm going to wear a T-shirt that says "long-winded human being," and I'll have Dash.
You're not that long-winded. There's way more long-winded, but you give thorough answers. I always say get 20 minutes, but like you get in a conversation. People have stuff to say, and I have stuff to say, and it just always takes longer than you think.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, man. I enjoyed it. I'll see you next week.
All right, see you, man. Welcome back in to Big Hitters Only. We now bring on UNC football season ticket holder, dedicated fan, Chapel Hill resident, Rams Club member Kyle Peterson for his second appearance on Big Hitters Only. His last appearance.
Me, Ross.
That's right. His last appearance got rave reviews from UNC football hardos for your knowledge and patient breakdown of the issues concerning Belichick and the Tar Heels. All right, season's done. It's going to be, as we continue this show, it's kind of a wrap up of the football season, but more looking towards the future and like what to expect, what we want, what we need, what we're going to do with this Lombardi Belichick experiment. Let's just start there. I mean, let's start with like a general thing, like 4-8. How do you feel coming out of the season, heading into the offseason?
Not great. I think 4-8 was below everyone's sort of, worst case expectations or maybe very worst case expectations. And I think also the way we got there wasn't pretty. The offense was really, really hard to watch. It wasn't a fun brand of football. And then, of course, ending by losing to 3 in-state rivals, none of which are as well resourced as we are. The University of North Carolina flagship state school, it should be the best out of those 4 schools, and we were clearly the worst this year. So very frustrating. I think we could see, as the last time we did this pod, talked about this season clearly was not going to materialize in great success. I do think team improved, but from a very low starting point. So there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a couple of things. Like it is kind of frustrating seeing what Wake did with Jake Dickert. I mean, small private school with like 5,000 undergrads, a very small alumni base. Obviously, they do have some funding, but they bring in a coach, and a young, experienced head coach from Washington State, I believe, or Oregon State, one of the two, comes in. Yeah, and they look good.
Low profile hire. I don't think, you didn't see them in any headlines about big spending or winning big transfer portal battles.
Yeah.
I think that's, that's sort of the difference between bringing in a current up and coming college coach who is ready to go and can bring some staff and players with them and scouting the portal versus, is what you called, I think correctly, this experiment that we went down.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you like the various styles. You could bring a coordinator from a big program. You could bring in a kind of a lower level head coach, which would be like the Dickert or like the Summerall hire, or Ryan Silverfield now for Arkansas, or Golesh. I think is it Ryan Golesh? Golesh at South Florida going to Auburn. I mean, those are all hires that on paper look pretty good because they've kind of worked their way up. They know how to run a football program. They've worked underneath people who can do it. They've been in leadership positions, and then they've led a program to success as well.
This cycle, we're getting a little off base in college football landscape. It was interesting. This cycle, all current head coaches went first off the board. No coordinators were hired, until that first wave of current, a lot of G5 American Conference head coaches went off the board. I think that's the athletic directors, administrations, maybe fearing, learning the complexities of the current landscape, managing this crazy NIL revenue share world. I think there's some hesitation to bring in guys without head coaching experience.
Yeah, and I mean, not just beyond that, like people who have fundraised before and operated with donors at a lower level and understand that aspect of it as well, because of how important it is. I mean, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, they're doing some alumni fundraising events, going down to play golf at Pinehurst or something, but truly the head coach is facilitating a lot of money there, and you have these coaches that have done it before at a lower level. It's interesting. Glenn Schumann, I never saw his name. He was a hot name for UNC last year. I haven't seen his name once. And you see Georgia again back in the college football playoff and winning the SEC. So it's interesting to see how his name has kind of floundered and what ADs are waiting for there as well. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. All right. So, all right. Recruiting, the National Signing Day was last week. UNC signed, I think, 39 players. They spent, per Inside Carolina's Greg Barnes, $10 million on 39 freshmen. Blows my mind. I'm interested to see, which players got the most. That Texas flip, Vadnais Cleveland, I heard was a pretty penny to get him in. So you're spending like $600K, $800K on single players in some situations, and some players probably get, I don't know, I have no idea, $10K, $20K, like what's the minimum? And the tough part about this is you're bringing in 39 freshmen, and Lombardi kind of building for the future, obviously trying to lengthen the leash of this Lombardi Belichick era, because we're spending money on freshmen. We need to see them be sophomores. We need to see them be juniors. And when they're juniors and seniors is when this star class can win. We're going to stack classes. What do you think about that approach and the money spent by UNC in this 2026 signing class?
Yeah, I think first, it's hard to really put into context what that $10 million means. We don't know how they've structured contracts, how many years. Yeah. I sure as heck hope those are multi-year deals getting to that $10 million total. It would be insane to be spending $10 million on true freshmen just for next season. But regardless, the theme is the same of like they've put in a big effort into bringing in this freshman class, big freshman class, expensive freshman class, clearly got aggressive, flipping, the Vadnais Cleveland kid from Texas. We just blatantly paid him more. I mean, I'm sure we sold him well too, but we went and paid that safety from Ohio more than he was committed to Ohio State. We offered him more. We got him. That's how the game works now. But clearly it showed a willingness and a priority to go get a big freshman class and a quality freshman class. So that's exciting. At the same time, I think everyone knows that next year you're not going to get an ROI on that. Mm-hmm. I think they're probably banking on a few of these guys contributing and maybe contributing meaningfully, but you're not competing, at the top tier of the ACC with a large number of freshmen. So, and with the current team that we have, obviously you need a lot of work in the portal. So I think everyone's fear or hesitancy is how much budget did we leave for the portal? Yeah. And they had to know that too. We're not as much as I've criticized Lombardi, I'm sure he's thought about that. So I know we're not going in completely open handed, but they're not going to make it to year 3, maybe not even year 2 of this class if they don't really redo the roster for next season.
Let's stay on recruiting here and signing as well. This is clearly not sustainable. Like you want to build through I mean, in a way, it is sustainable. You want to build through recruiting and signing these classes, but signing 39, was it? They brought in like 40 new players last year, bringing 39 freshmen. Those are all new players that can't contribute. Like, that's not sustainable. And then spending that much on freshmen is also not sustainable. I wonder the mindset of Lombardi in doing that, and how that gets leaked, the money, and if is that good to have it leak? Like, is it good to show recruits that UNC is willing to pay? Is it good to outbid other schools just to get that 4-star player and beat Texas or beat Ohio State for one of their like lower tier recruits? Like, I wonder. I
I
mean,
think
I
it's
would
good
think.
publicity.
I
You know,
think, but then you're paying. I mean, I guess you just have to not be attached to the money because it's like not your money, and you're like, fuck
yeah.
it. We're gonna spend, and UNC spends now. And if you want money, you can come to Carolina and get some. I just also hate wasteful spending, and I hate waste in any way of life. It's like I just think these guys are gonna take their money, and then if they're good enough, they're gonna leave and go get more at a better school. That's why it's frustrating. I think I was expecting like Belichick, and maybe he has in many ways, and maybe will in the transfer portal, is to find the gems like the 3-star who can contribute
Well,
early and also be like a baller down the road. You
with
can get in for
with
pretty cheap.
39 guys in the class, we have the
Yeah,
opportunity. We have every range, right? So, we certainly went after some of those fringe top 100, high 4-star guys, and paid them big money to do that, by all accounts. And then we have, some guys that were not highly rated guys, plenty of guys at the bottom of the class too.
yeah,
So I think with this freshman class, at least, hit it from every angle. I'm sure some of the lower ranked guys will outperform, and some of the higher ranked guys will underperform. That's just how recruiting works. But they need to hit on a higher percentage of these guys than the Mac Brown era hit on for sure.
yeah. And obviously the star Travis Burgess out of Grayson High School in Loganville, Georgia, is the quarterback. Let's get into that. I mean, I think that leads easily into the transfer portal talk now. Obviously, UNC is going to need to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. Gio Lopez was not as expected. He has like a broken leg now, apparently. He's going to miss a lot of the winter workouts and maybe some of the spring. He wasn't that great. I think he showed some aspects of being an average quarterback at times, and maybe that improves with a better coordinator. But you have Bryce Baker on the roster. You have was it Newark? Is that his name? Yeah, Newkirk. You bring in Travis Burgess. Max Johnson's leaving, and you would think UNC brings in at least one transfer portal quarterback. How do you think this plays out with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback for next season? Like, we're sitting here in August in training camp, and in Dublin. Like, who is going to be out there? How do you think this all happens? Incorporating all the different angles in play.
Yeah, I think that's has to be a transfer portal guy. And I know there's been reports that staff is working behind the scenes on that before the portal officially opens, just like everybody is. And I do think we have some real upside in young guys in the quarterback room, that are exciting. I think the Burgess kid, just from watching a few minute highlights, like his talent jumps off the screen. He's tall, strong arm, can run, but he also missed this whole year with an injury. I think he only really played only fully 1 full year as a starter in high school. You cannot come in to frankly make or break season. Not that we have championship expectations, but like you could lose your job after next year. You cannot come into that expecting a true freshman to play.
Yeah,
And obviously they've seen more of Newkirk. They clearly like him. I think his he clearly jumped off also the screen of like a high potential sort of raw guy, in high school. It was like, I think when he first admitted to us, he was low 3-star, barely any offers, and then at least one or two of the sites had him a 4-star by the end of it, and they had him running ahead of Baker, all year apparently. So they clearly like his upside. but I can't imagine, it's hard to imagine they've seen enough, based off of what we saw on the field this year where they feel comfortable going in to the season banking on him being the starter either. And Gio, maybe you could be fine. I think, better, as you said, better OC, better team around him. He was playing better at the end of the year, but you're going to have a hard time selling any season tickets with him. It was a tough scene that we saw on the field this year. I think that was more than just Gio, but he isn't good enough to be a high level ACC quarterback.
Let's jump in there. We don't know the details of his contract, but it's a 2-year deal. But there's rumors that it could be like some sort of buyout situation. Why not buy him out but again, he has a broken leg. Like, he probably doesn't want to agree to that. He might just want to cash a check next year.
So we've seen a couple different things reported over the last year on his contract. Don't know the truth. Originally they said it was a 2-year, $4 million deal, and then there's another report by one of the bigger national writers, I think, that was saying the base of his deal was actually $900K, and so probably the difference is incentives, I'm guessing.
Okay.
No idea how that's structured. You don't want to pay $900K for him as your backup. But if he wants to stay on the roster, that's not the worst situation you could have to have him as your backup next year. But you got to be able to find the cash and sell a guy to come in ahead of him. And it's not the easiest sell right now, right? We don't know who the offense coordinator is going to be. It was an ugly, very quarterback unfriendly offense that we put out on the field this year. But enough money and sell the Belichick NFL, preparedness and development angle, got to make something work.
Yeah. So I guess you just go all in on someone who wants to come here for $2 million. Maybe the quarterback with an OC that you like, you can bring in both. I mean, you have to operate like you're going to be here. This is a huge year and you have to win. You have to go all in on a quarterback and then build around him. And when you have a quarterback and an OC, then maybe you can we get another wide receiver. We can get a couple offensive linemen. And then all right, if Jordan Shipp comes back, reported that Damon June is coming back. Shipp has not been officially reported, but there's rumors that he wants to come back. If I was him, I would not come back. But then you could build around the quarterback. But you got to have that quarterback. It's got to happen quick. And so I would hope that they got a couple names already, and they're just waiting for other people to leave. And you probably have 5 to 10 names already. But it's got to be OC quarterback. It's got to be chicken or the egg. They have to come in kind of together.
I would love to pull that duo there, and I think that's how a lot of college staffs have operated. I think we're a little bit more challenged with Belichick's clear NFL style preference. There's not that many current college offensive coordinators that run an offense, really in the same realm of what we ran this year. So I would love to go down that route of a more college style offense and more current established offensive coordinator, but I don't know that there's that many that fit the profile Belichick's looking for.
So then you're like, all right, well, that could cost him if he doesn't want to adapt. You kind of know what you need there. I mean, this is the whole thing about being stubborn and thinking you're smarter than everyone else. And obviously, they learned some lessons in transfer portal acquisition and scouting and development on both sides of the ball, that what they've done and did and thought they could do didn't work. So he's got to nut up and find an offensive coordinator that's going to want to establish his system and not. I mean, they're not going to bring someone in that's going to change their system to work under Belichick. It's going to have to be either someone that already runs a similar system to Belichick that he wants to run, or Belichick's going to say, "Hey, here are your keys. Here's the offense." And these players can, offensive linemen can adapt to any system. Damon June can probably.
Well, we have to rebuild the offensive line anyway. So.
Exactly.
I don't think we're going to return that many of the offensive impact guys, other than June. Hopefully, Ship. Apparently, the whole receiver room is already largely cleaned out. It's a pretty big remake of the offensive personnel, so it does give you a little bit more flexibility if Belichick's willing to do that to rebuild the offensive style as well.
And like, I mean, we got to be real with ourselves. Like, I'm not sure if I was an office coordinator, I'd want to come to UNC, knowing that look, if we don't win 6 games with that schedule or 7 to 8 games with the schedule, like I'm going to have to
Yeah.
find another home next year. That's a
It's
tough sell
tougher
too.
stuff.
Yeah, so it's like,
Coaches do it all the time. It is obviously a tougher sell, but these coaches aren't living the lifestyle that we're living. Their families are used to moving, and they're confident in what they're doing. So I think it's a hard sell, but I don't think it's as hard of a sell as maybe the common fan thinks it is. These coaching staffs, their families, they're used to always sort of chasing the next thing, chasing upward mobility. Almost not quite Lane Kiffin style,
yeah,
confidence, but sort of in the same realm, same breed.
yeah.
Because good college football coaches,
You find a G5 coach who wants to coach in a power conference and
right?
he adds that to his resume. But then if you get fired after that year, you new home. That's why you get paid the big bucks. That's why, they're paying you a
Yep.
lot to move your family, and that's the risk that comes with it. That's why it's just tough for me. It's like and I think a lot of fans think this way, like if they think that Belichick and Lombardi aren't the guys to lead this program, despite how much it's going to cost, they should fire him when they don't think. That's what I thought could happen. This should happen with, who's the NC State basketball coach, Kevin Keats. Like when they knew he wasn't the guy, you got to fire him. Like when you know someone's not the guy, you kind of have to eat it because it kind of handcuffs you in recruiting. If you're just trying to, all right, let's hope he makes it. Let's hope he gets to 7 wins, and then we'll reevaluate. But then you're like, all right, well, we got to have an extension to ensure recruiting, and it's when it's not the right person, you've got to cut bait. You've seen that, Fedora, had 2 bad seasons. He was gone. Like it probably, I don't know. And Mac Brown, like, it's not the person you cut bait. So it's just a tough situation.
Probably cut bait a year late on Mac Brown, and where it was kind of obvious at the end of Drake May's second season where we were right there in the
Yeah,
mix, and it tailed off at the end of the year, and how much we were losing after that year. It was probably time to cut bait then. I think that's having a dwindling roster and more uncertainty,
yeah,
and then bringing in a coach who was not bringing players with him, or probably ready to hit the ground running on the player personnel side from day one. It just sort of dug us further in
yeah.
that hole. We got a lot of work to do to dig ourselves out.
Yeah, and if I was Mac Brown, I would have left after Drake May. It's like it wasn't going to get much better than that in terms of your offense, and he stayed a year late. And
Coaches are confident guys, as I
I
was
know,
saying. They always think they're going to figure it out. Just need one more year, or whatever it is. So yeah, that whole transition could have been handled better all the way around.
yeah. So, all right, we'll get out of here. Appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate Kyle's time. Let's get into like because you're a money guy, you're a numbers guy. What do you think the approach is out? So you say 10 million of UNC's allotted funds for this roster is going to the recruits, the freshmen. We think is there 10 million left? Is that the number?
Better
We
be.
don't know. Rev share is what, 17 million roughly, or
I thought football
75%.
split was more like 14, 13.
Yeah, and the rest goes
You're
to
seeing,
basketball.
yeah, and you're seeing a lot of, you're seeing these numbers thrown out, like with the Lane Kiffin offers, that LSU was putting together, the funds to have a $25 million roster. So you assume, their rev shares probably a little more heavily rated to football. So let's call it 15 from rev share, 10 mil from NIL to get your $25 million a year salary. I think Ohio State's already been there, and schools are continuing to sort of push that up.
Yeah, so let's hope that UNC has 20 million salary. Is that a fair number? Probably with the combination of rev share and then extra NIL.
That's my best guess.
Yeah. So all right, 10 million on transfer portal, 2 million on a quarterback minimum.
And I think that probably gets you. 2 million's not getting you the proven P4 starter. The 2 million,
the Arizona guy, the Arizona State guy.
Yeah, he's going to be more than 2 million a year. I mean, if Mensa got $4 million from Duke, coming from Tulane, I think Mateer got coming from Washington State that we chased heavily, got 4 million plus at Oklahoma. Fernando Mendoza, I don't know what he got from Indiana, but apparently we were offering him big money too. So to assume he got sort of in the 4 million plus range. So 2 million may get you like the kid from Harvard whose name started floating around a lot yesterday. Watched a 1 minute clip of him, and it's not what you would expect from a guy coming from the Ivy League. What like the physical tools are there. So maybe you can get that type of guy for 2 million, but you're not getting the big names that are floating around the message boards as the guys the fans already know for 2 mil. So I think again, we don't know what money's really there, but I think you have to at least consider getting up. Okay, we were offering guys 4 million last year and got beat out. Like, you may need to go bigger if you feel like you have the right guy there to do that, to seal the deal, because we don't have the best thing to sell them right now in comparison to Oklahoma and Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have to kind of have confidence in your scouting and what you think could happen. Yeah, I feel really good.
We got to do a better job finding the fit. So Gio, obviously, I think in total was a bad scout, not as good as what we thought he would be. We also looked like we were putting him. He looked destined to be an RPO spread, very college style quarterback, and we roll out there against TCU with like 7 offensive linemen on the field, like heavy set packages, and passing strictly out of play action in the pocket, and looks totally uncomfortable, unsuited for the offense we're running. So, if you're going to pay $6 million, you also kind of like what I was saying for offensive coordinator, like it might narrow the scope too. The guy that fits that, like some of these guys running heavy college spread systems, how do they translate, and do they want to translate? Maybe like I think a guy like Dylan Raiola at Nebraska, heavily rumored to be hitting the portal. He's probably going to have big dollars and big suitors, probably chasing a bigger program than us. But I think he's more of the pro style guy than most colleges are running. So I think it's got to be narrowed in to that right guy.
So you probably go OC first. You gotta get your OC in there, and he either brings someone else.
Really know. I mean, I think these guys want to know who their OC is.
Yeah.
So that probably is important, but I think you at least have to have clear conviction of the style you're going to run, what you're trying to accomplish as you target your quarterback.
Okay, so 3-4 million, 2 to 4 million on a quarterback leaves you with 6, we think, for the rest of the roster, and then it's like.
Well, let's say I would hope that 10 million for the freshman looks more like 4 for this year.
Okay, so
if we're looking
we just don't know. Year. We just don't know. They can't report on this.
That's my guess.
So you're saying it's $10 million deals that could be 2-year deals. So it's that's how much.
That's my guess. That's my interpretation. It better be, because like I said, you can't have a $20 million payroll for this year and have 10 million of that spent on true freshmen. I mean, we would it would make this year look like the 85 Bears, right?
So all right, so the retention I think is huge. It's huge in every sport. It's huge in basketball,
defense,
and football. Yeah, so they're gonna try to pay those two defensive ends, Thompson and I can't say his name, but he won second
Yeah,
team All
Melcart.
ACC, Melcart, Dujabay. I mean, I'm not, dude. After covering this team, I've kind of checked out on the roster, so I don't know. I know we lost the linebacker in the transfer portal. It seems
The
they
the
try to
D
move the safety.
line is the D line's almost all eligible to come back. I think there's only one senior in the rotation. I don't even remember who that was, but there's a lot. The D line was probably the strength, or at least one of the better units on our team, and most of those guys are eligible to come back. Got to keep them, or at
Yeah,
least keep a good number because we don't have like I said, I don't think the funds are there to go acquire spend big money there, and I think the one spot, maybe the only spot of the coaching staff that you felt good about was what Diaco did with the D line and how much better they looked, granted against some bad offenses, middle of the season, but how much, sort of improvement we saw from, the, look against Virginia, they were game wreckers. Not that Virginia, I think Virginia's record was a little fluky this year, but, the D line kind of dominated that game. So I think that's sort of the one area where it's like, let's kind of keep doing what we're doing there. Feel good about that. The big retention spot there to allow us to then go get replace linebackers. Then you're gonna have to replace at least one corner with Dixon leaving. So I think defense it's probably linebacker and corner where you're sort of clear need for starting level players.
yeah, and it's harder to find defensive linemen than it is linebackers and corners. It's harder to find offensive linemen than it is wide receivers and running backs. Um, it's all because there's not as many people who are 6'5",
Yeah,
290, 330 who can move like that. So it's reassuring that you try to retain a defensive line, and I'm dude, but you got to think that schools like the SEC and the Big Ten are going to make
sure.
some offers for these people too. So you have to fight off these
Yeah,
pro agents now are probably trying to work a little bit. Hey, my guy's available. Come in and pay him to get their player a raise. It's a nasty business. You see it in basketball recruiting, which is what I do day to day. It's just you keep your options open to try to increase how much money you can make for that year. So you have to be smart. And at some point, hey, this player's not worth it anymore. If he wants to go get an extra $500K at Ohio State, go ahead, and then you try to find a developmental player from the G5 or a lower conference school. So it's
what
so
we'll say
interesting.
is, we heard rumblings at least of sort of in the first, call it 8-9 months of the Lombardi Belichick, tenure of, both in terms of existing players and in the portal of Lombardi being kind of cheap, hard negotiator,
Yeah,
maybe not the most friendly with agents, trying to drive the best deal. It's public knowledge now basically that we were going out and bidding high for some of these high school recruits. So maybe there's been a little bit of a realization. I hope kind of takes some of those learnings and mindsets for the portal too of, hey, like the guys we want are going to have a bunch of other suitors, and just saying, hey, come play for Bill Belichick isn't going to do the trick.
yeah,
um, you probably have to get guys who do believe in that to still choose you over other, at least similar offers, or competitive offers. But hopefully there's been some learning there and how this current college landscape works, and some more willingness to spend. And as we communicated offline, as Lombardi's also gained a reputation of being aggressive and asking for the funds. So maybe he's coming to a reality that he's got to spend a little bit more aggressively.
yeah. I don't hate a guy that can to try to drive a hard bargain too. Like if he says, "Hey, walk if you don't. Here's our offer. If you don't
Yeah,
want it, leave."
yeah,
I mean, I don't mind that
yeah.
approach. But you
But
have
you
to be
got to go
flexible.
replace him.
Yeah,
You got to
you have
go
to be
replace him.
flexible. They have
Yeah,
to have. I mean, I just pray and hope that the scouting department they should have the whole list, and it's like, all right, if this player leaves, we're on to our next person,
yeah.
and we reach out to them. If that player's not available,
There
here's our
is
next person.
there's a big ESPN article that came out around this time last year about Texas Tech's front office
Yeah.
and how, it was really building out what we say that we were building out under Lombardi of like full scouting department, scouting all year. Obviously, they have a ton of money behind them, but they were doing this, call it 2 years before we were, and you see how that's paying off. So if they're doing the same job and we have the money to spend in the portal, not saying we're going to mirror Texas Tech success. I don't think we have the same oil money, and we're further behind. But that's the strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be prepared, and it's way more complicated than NFL free agency because you're dealing with way more teams, way more
Every
players.
Guy in the offseason, these contracts, as much as I think the industry is trying to make this more enforceable. There's sort of the Georgia going after a guy who transferred to get their money back. As much as we're trying to make these contracts more enforceable, more structured, there's still, at least to an extent, where every single player is a free agent every year. They can come back and renegotiate their deal.
Yeah, and and also, unlike the NFL, like these players have so much variation in how good they are. Like you don't really know what you're getting. Like Gio's a great example. Like you think you got a good player, but until they play that next level in the ACC, and you don't have 2 seconds to step back. The defenders are coming in 1.5 seconds, or the linebackers are quicker, defensive ends are quicker. It changes everything. The windows are smaller for passing. So there's way more variation in the talent. It's like, in the NFL, you kind of know what you're going to get when you get someone because you've seen them against NFL competition. Here, you might get a player from App or JMU that's been playing Sunbelt teams. And so that changes how you scout and how you approach it too. Yeah, so I mean, I just hope we're prepared. I hope that we have a roster of like, all right, if this quarterback doesn't want to come here, here's next quarterback. Offensive tackle, same way. Linebacker, cornerback, and you got to get a really good offense in there. If UNC has a hope of keeping Belichick or if they have a hope of getting to year 3, Belichick and Lombardi, it's got to be kind of all on offense. Retain on defense and get a couple pieces in and hope that you've recruited well last year and the transfer portals you brought in last year can provide some starters there that you maybe don't have to pay as much. But I mean, look at the schedule next year too, and it's not exactly 6-6. You may have a way better team and go 6-6, and
it's going to take a way better team to go 6-6 for sure. And I think at least a lot of the fan base can understand that. Miami and Notre Dame on the schedule, guys like that instead of Stanford. But it's got to look better.
Yeah,
got to be more inspiring, and I think who knows how it will play out. Who will be good, but that would be meaningful improvement, and if we see meaningful improvement, there's more support to keep moving on to year 3 and feel like we're moving the timetable back from where we wanted to be in terms of having a window to succeed with Belichick. But if you're getting closer to there, you can see it. But it's going to take, as you said, I mean, just the offense, almost a complete rebuild of personnel. Good thing is, with the exception of the guys we've already named, which isn't that many, the defensive line, Jordan Shipp, Damon June, and I guess Gio kind of wasted money, but there's not a lot of payroll coming back.
Exactly. Hey, it could be a good thing. Could be a good thing, right?
Exactly. So as much as there should be a limited starting base, from the current roster to help free up funds for the portal.
I'm gonna get you out of here on this. All right. And I think one thing you touched on is like the offense has to look better. Like you have to have, some scoring in the 30s, like a good offense that's moving the ball, getting first downs, and like competing in games offensively. I think that's the first thing. What?
The product was so hard on the eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to have that. But looking at the schedule, TCU, East Tennessee State, UConn, Notre Dame on October 3rd, and then the ACC schedule isn't set yet, but the teams are set. At Clemson, at Duke, Louisville. Well, we haven't played Louisville forever. Miami at home, NC State at home, Syracuse at home, at Pitt, and at Virginia. At Clemson, at Pitt, super hard games. Louisville, Miami at home, Notre Dame at home. Those are very hard games. And at Virginia. Like, what is the question? It's the big question. What is your record? Let's say everything looks pretty good and they're like competing a lot better than last year and they're moving the ball and they're averaging 28 points a game. All right. What is the record where you're like, all right, let's go to year 3 with Belichick and Lombardi?
Probably 6-6. I mean, you don't feel great about that. I mean, 6-6 is not where we want to be and what we're paying $10 million a year to our head coach to do. But based off, these rosters are all going to turn over quite a bit. But based off of what these teams were this year, like you're looking at that schedule and said, who are we beating outside of ETSU. Syracuse? At UConn, I mean, Duke lost at UConn, and they were clearly better than us.
They got a new head coach this year.
I guess they'll probably have a lot of turnover. So who knows what UConn will be? But that's not a gimme. That's not UNC Charlotte. So meaningful improvement to get to 6-6 is probably what's required. Certainly like to see better than that. I don't think I would be super enthusiastic with anything less than 8 wins. But, if we're hanging in there, we also got embarrassed in a lot of games, right? I've heard, seen some of the sunshine pumpers on the message board saying, oh, we were, 3 bad bounces away from being, 6-7 wins. And if we had that and a competent quarterback, it's like, well, we also got beat by 30 against a bad UCF team. Let up 42.
Clemson.
Yeah, let up 42 points to a average NC State team at the end of the year who clearly, wanted it more. You lose to Duke, you lose to Witt. Is it like you can't sort of cherry pick? Like, oh, if we would have just gotten this one better bounce, we would have been 6-6. Sure, every team should sit there and cherry pick their one or two close losses. So
the Duke, Virginia, and Cal games. I mean, those could go. I mean, those were one possession, one ball.
Virginia in particular. Like, even though they were clearly a better team than us, felt like we should have won that game. But that's what happens, and that's what difference between winning teams and losing teams. And Duke, putting at Duke, obviously they were better than us, but we, still down to down looked like we could play with them and had those huge mistakes that you didn't expect to see under Belichick. The fake field goal that was sort of the game-winning play. That's the kind of stuff we all thought like Belichick would pull out to win us those games in the margin this year.
Yeah,
and instead it was kind of the opposite. So. I still think it was much more of a talent issue. We talked about on the pod last time. Like, I think we were kind of at the point between the lack of talent on the roster, learning everything. I think we were swimming upstream too much. Coaching staff was swimming upstream too much to focus on to even get to those type of small details to pull out the trick play on special teams that wins you the game. But for $10 million a year, we gotta see some of those things sooner rather than later.
For sure. All right, Kyle, I appreciate it. Final question: how many hours a day are you on the message boards? 24 hours a day. How many hours are you on their phone and desktop?
Oh, I don't know. So also, this is like the type of question when you would go to your primary care doctor when you were 20 and they ask you how many alcoholic beverages you drink per week. You got to tone it down a little bit to be more acceptable. We'll say 30 minutes a day, but it's a lot of frequent check-ins. I've probably been responsible for my company's in the past IT department shutting down a lot of access to sports websites in the past.
There you go. 30 minutes a day. All right. So probably 2 hours? All right, man. Appreciate it, Kyle. You're great.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different kind of conversation having you on. fan perspective, a very knowledgeable, invested in the program, and a good grasp of the whole college football landscape. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Ross. Later.
See ya. All right, and now we bring on one of our most dedicated guests, a big hitter, Mike Hardison, for his first appearance of this basketball season. I think he made one appearance during football season after the TCU game, and football is tough. We didn't do a lot of pods during football season, but got Mike on here. Guys, BHO, I've talked about already. Check out Rhoback.com, promo code BHO20 for 20% off your order. Great Christmas shopping for first-time buyers. Use a different email. Take advantage of that. Anything on their website. 20% off, BHO20 on Rhoback. Mike, what's up, man?
How we doing, Ross? I'm doing well.
It's good. It's good. Christmas season's here. Let's get into it. You can hit me up about wanting to talk about the Georgetown game. I think that's a good way to start. UNC, dude, I don't even know their record. They've lost one game.
They're 8-1.
Kind of 8-1. They're kind of rolling now. They look good. The Kentucky game was a little tough, but looked good at the end there, and then kind of rolled Georgetown 81-61. I think all UNC fans feel pretty good about the direction of this team and getting Seth Trimble back. Let's get your overarching take on this team right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think it's positive, man. I think you could probably say with a high level of certainty that this is better than what most folks were expecting, right? I think generally speaking, we kind of came into the season, we looked at certain games on the schedule, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan State, Ohio State, and I think generally speaking, people would have been happy with 2-2. And if you had told us that, hey, through 3 of those games, they are 2-1 and undefeated in the rest, I think you'd happily take that. I think it is exciting to have a player like Caleb Wilson. I mean, even if we, were maybe our record wasn't as good as it was, it'd still be worth watching him every night because he is that electric of a player. I think the front court's one of the best in America, and I think that the Seth Trimble injury, while frustrating in the moment, might pay dividends in the sense that we're seeing Derek Dixon step up and we're giving more opportunities and looks to the backcourt and seeing how they kind of gel in his absence. So interested to hear your thoughts, but generally speaking, I'm pretty excited and positive.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Henry Vasar and Caleb Wilson have been exceeded expectations. Like, I mean, there was a lot of hype on them too. Like, Vasar had to come in and be the guy and kind of carry it from a center perspective after UNC failed to really get a viable center last year. I mean, he's come on. I think offensively, he's been awesome. The rebounding has been hit or miss, but I thought he looked great on the boards against Georgetown. He plays very hard. He's all you want in terms of size. You kind of wish he was a little bit stronger, a little bigger for defense and rebounding, but you can't get everything. And like, he has been so perfect in terms of what this team needed. He's a shot blocker. He's a shot effector. He's a team player. He's a good passer. He works well with Caleb Wilson. And I think, his contributions, you kind of count on him to give you at least 15 points and 10 rebounds a game, 15 and 8. I mean, he's been awesome. And the way he plays just changes how UNC looks in terms of like the gravity that, he attracts, his ability to step out and hit a 3. And I do worry about his conditioning and just wearing down. I mean, I think he's in great shape, just wearing down over the course of the ACC stretch. That would be like the one thing. They got to figure out a way to get him rest at strategical moments in games, into the first half, before timeouts, things like that. And then Caleb Wilson's been awesome. I mean, we can talk about him forever, but I mean, I think the best thing about him is that UNC is going to have this like all-star NBA player in a couple of years. I think he's the complete package. In every game, he kind of shows a different thing he can do, whether it be a fadeaway jumper, a really good kind of 8-foot mid-range game, the dunking, the rebounding, the defense, operating out of a double team. It's been super exciting to see those two guys work and how they're going to play together, continue to play together as the season continues.
Yeah, one quick thing on Vasar. I'm curious to hear your thoughts here. I think in the last couple seasons, maybe UNC's lacked kind of an energetic leader, vocal leader on the floor. I think the last guy I can think of that was like clearly that guy was Harrison Ingram. Vasar and in combination with Caleb, like kind of seemed to bring the energy like night in, night out. Vasar, you can is very emotive on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
The one play that sticks out to me, he's been stellar, right? Like, from a in the paint situation, being able to hit the occasional three, like can't say enough. Like been awesome. His rebounding has gotten better. But the thing that stuck
Mm-hmm.
out to me in the last game was I don't know if you remember the play. I think it was Malik Mack of Georgetown stuck out his foot and basically tripped one of our guys on the way back up the court. And the person I actually paid attention on that was Vasar, kind of throwing his hands up in the air and signaling to everyone around, like, "Hey, like we need to review this. This is something to take a look at." I just kind of appreciate like the level of intensity like in the game and like trying to bring focus and energy to the floor there in that moment where you're running back in transition just kind of stuck to me as like emblematic of how I think he's played the game as a whole. To
Yeah.
the Caleb on the Caleb Wilson front, like I agree with you. Like the guy is electric, and I think kind of like Drake May, like in football, right? Like if you remember the last two seasons of Drake May, a lot of times like people would just be like, "Yep, Drake May was Drake May," and you'd never want to discount that because it is so special to see. Caleb Wilson is becoming the same type of guy, right? Like what Caleb Wilson's doing right now is unbelievable. I mean, he's averaging I think 19 and 10 before the Georgetown game, so it might be back up to 20 and 10 as a freshman, and is basically like what 5 games in a row now with a double double, like as a freshman, and so really don't want to lose focus. Like he's not just in the. I mean, if Cameron Boozer weren't in the conference, I think you would easily tag him as ACC Rookie of the Year, if not Player of the Year as well. And I think you really need to start talking about Henry Vasar as a first team All ACC guy because he's going to be right there at the end of the season.
What's trouble now is there's 18 teams in the league. There's so many good players across the league. Like it's just to pick five. It's tough to make that. I mean, even becoming All ACC now, being a top 15 player is a huge honor. You look at the freshman at Virginia Tech's really good. I mean, there's players across the board that are really dominant. Yeah, Caleb Wilson. I mean, you can. There's so much you can say about him. He's so good. I'm just excited to see what he can do after this year and what he can carry. How he can carry this team because there's times when you have to kind of lean on him to get you a basket. I think that kind of takes us to the next question, and I love what you said about Vasar. I didn't know you were referencing that play about him pointing out the Derek Dixon trip, which was disgusting. But I thought he was super emotive after like an and one or something that was like, I love that energy. And just kind of, I think he loves basketball. And I think I talked to him at ACC Media Day, very smart, knows basketball, and can talk it, which is an indicator of someone who is kind of invested in the sport, which is always good to see. So I think what I said about Wilson's ability, like to carry the team, often UNC needs him to kind of go get a basket, takes us to like the perimeter and how this team can get better in the perimeter. You have the role players, Jaren Stevenson, Powell, I think has become like UNC's 6th or 7th man off the bench, and definitely the backup 2 and 3. Seth Trimble's impact when he comes back in, we can definitely talk about that, but I think the emergence of Derek Dixon, and like I wonder who you think can be that go-to guy on the perimeter. Is it Kyan Evans, or can he be that guy? Is it Derek Dixon now who can like nail a three and seems so confident as a shooter, or is it Luka who looked really good against Georgetown? Let's see what he scored against Georgetown. Luka had 14 points, 5 for 10 from the field. You kind of take that. You kind of want him to hit another three. He only hit 1 3. I thought he hit more than that. But I think Luka has it in him. We just haven't seen him kind of take over a game. What do you like about the perimeter, and where do you think this pecking order will go in terms of a scorer back there?
Yeah, I think the backcourt is a work in progress with promising signs, right? I think a lot of this is tough to gauge before Seth Trimble gets back because I want to see how everyone plays off of him. I think if I had to make a decision right now about what the end of January starting lineup looks like, my guess is that your 1 through 3 is going to be Derek Dixon, Seth Trimble, Jaren Stevenson. I also think there's a possibility you can go small and slot Luka into the 2 or 3, slide Jaren to the 4, Wilson to the 5 if you need to spell Vasar because the conditioning, like you mentioned earlier, is a little bit of an issue. I think the thing about Luka is that he clearly he's got a basketball mind, kind of in the same way that Vasar does.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the delay in getting him, exhibition and waiting for that eligibility to be resolved probably led to there's probably some chemistry issues, just as if you're transferring in from Europe, like there's going to be. It seems like they're not always on the same page, and I think sometimes he plays a little bit of hero ball, which has been frustrating. Um, I think the thing that probably is most concerning for me is that like the guys you've been bringing in to be shooters haven't really showed me much consistency.
Yeah.
I'm referring specifically to Kyan Evans, Jonathan Powell, those guys. I get worried when I think Powell was what 1 for 6 from 3 point range, or maybe he
One
hit
for
a
five.
second 1 for 5, and like just kind of kept missing. Stevenson was 1 for 6. Like when Hubert put such an emphasis on shooters and on 3 point ability, and the entire idea of having a dynamic 4 and 5 like Caleb Wilson and Vasar is to free up spacing and allow them to have open shots, which they've had plenty of, and you still cannot connect on them. It's concerning. I don't know what it is about transfers coming into North Carolina, but they always seem to pay a tax of like 10% from their 3 point shooting percentage whenever they get here, and it drives me bonkers. So curious to see what happens when Seth gets back. Cautiously optimistic that we're going to find our 1-2, and I think the starting one needs to be Derek Dixon. Really would like to see more consistency from the 3 point shooters.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make shots. Derek Dixon hit 3 threes against Georgetown. I'm going to run you through the percentages here.
Yeah.
Isaiah Dennis, it's a small sample size, but he's the best shooter on paper, but we won't talk about him. Dixon shooting 48% from 3. You'll take that. Vasar, 44. I mean, I wouldn't mind Vasar shooting a couple more. He's pretty good in a small sample size of knocking down threes. Luka Bogovic, who is like, it would be like I probably shot the most. He's shooting 32.7% from 3. Jonathan Powell, 32.3, and Kyan Evans, 30.8% from 3. Bogovic and Powell, and Stevenson shooting 22.2. I mean, those numbers just have to go up. I don't know what's going to take, because you would think in the early season against some lesser competition, they'd be shooting a little bit better. So I wonder if it's a comfortability thing. If it is Seth Trimble and, how much attention he draws as a driver and passing out, that's going to affect it. But I do think UNC has gotten good looks. Like, there's not many times I feel bad about the threes they're taking. Like, Stevenson has those corner threes he's been missing. Bogovic seems pretty open when he shoots his. Kyan Evans doesn't really search his shot more. But someone needs to step up, and someone needs to kind of claim that spot. I hope it's Bogovic, and then I hope Derek Dixon at the 1, Powell Derek Dixon at the 1, Trimble at the 2.
I wouldn't mind Luka at the 3. I'm interested to see, like, you could probably swap Jaren and Luka in depending upon the team, to be honest.
Yeah, I do like what Stevenson brings, his size. I mean, it's just it makes you feel so much bigger, man. I mean, he moves his feet well, and he's bigger and kind of knows what he's doing. He has some veteran experience, so I really like that.
Yeah.
Let's look at the schedule real quick.
Yeah.
All right, so UNC is 8-1 as I pull it up. They have South Carolina Upstate this weekend. We got the exam break right now. East Tennessee State on Tuesday. Ohio State, East Carolina, and we get into ACC play. Have you watched a lot of ACC stuff? What do you kind of think about this season? It's going to be tougher. Is there anything that stands out for you?
ACC SEC Challenge went much better for the ACC. Boston College, I think, blew it for us in overtime. I mean, last year, the ACC won 2 games against the SEC, and then this year they basically it came down to the wire. So I think you're seeing general improvement in the ACC. I think the analytics between Ken Palm and Bart Torvik and everything like that back that up. I think that the league has a firmer middle than it did last year. It's got a higher ceiling for its top than last year. I think the bottom's still pretty bad. Georgia Tech is awful. I think they're 201 in Ken Palm or something like that, or net. But there's going to be a lot more Q1 opportunities for Carolina this year, between on the road and even a couple at home. I think that will lend itself well. I think right now you could probably feel comfortable saying that we are trending towards a protected seed, right? I think that we came in. What I'm curious about, and we'll get into it here in a second, is are we hitting that threshold of where we feel comfortable saying Hubert can come back, no problem again next year? Before we get into that, I think one thing worth noting, we've got 2 gimme games over the next week or so, which is kind of nice as fans, where you can just turn on the game and not have to put much attention and stress into it. Ohio State will be another prime, Q1 opportunity. That would be a great game to win. Then you get East Carolina, not to knock them, but shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then Florida State at home. Florida State is not in the top half of the ACC, so you have to feel pretty decently about that. So there's a realistic chance that the Heels, like not inconceivable chance, the Heels could get to 2026 with one loss, which you tell us that at the beginning of the season, we are stoked. So I think that just again emphasizing here, this team is a lot is better than I think most of us were expecting. They have a higher ceiling than most of us were expecting, but the ACC is a little bit better than we were expecting as well. So, it will remain to be seen. I think at SMU is going to be tough. I think at Virginia is going to be tough. I'll be at that game here in Charlottesville. So there'll be at least 2 Carolina fans in the crowd. What are your takeaways here? Like, what's a realistic finish in the ACC for the rest of the
I won't go that far by me. Yeah, I was looking at the schedule now. I mean, they could be. Some tough games here, but they could win out until they play Virginia. SMU's tough. Wake Forest is much improved. Haven't got my eyes on Stanford or Cal or Notre Dame, but they have a chance. I think it really toughens up in February. We're jumping a little too far ahead. Only get State once in Raleigh. That's gonna be an incredible ticket.
That sucks. That sucks.
Yeah, the Will Wade guy. That experiment hasn't gone.
The
I think
the Van Allen commentary about how many minutes he plays has just blown up in his face, which is nice.
Yeah.
But golly,
I don't know what your Twitter looks like, but dude, I get so many of those NC State burners and just their accounts on my feed, and they have a rabid fan base that's like all in, and they're bashing Will Wade after the losses.
He's the perfect coach for that team.
I love it. He's great.
Yeah.
I think he'll eventually get it turned around. I think he was asking too much in year one to kind of have this team that would automatically go to the tournament, things like that.
Do you think he stays?
I think in 2 years, if he kind of gets this thing going, I think he'll go back to the SEC if there's more money there. But State's a good place for him too. But yeah. All right. Well, you mentioned one thing. You do think, at what point do they make Derek Dixon a starter? What's your mindset there with Hubert? Because the game after Kentucky, Georgetown, Kyan Evans was still in the starting lineup. Let's look at the point difference. I didn't get a chance to look at all these stats here. Kyan Evans played 20 minutes. I meant minute difference. Derek Dixon played 27 minutes. So based on minutes played against Georgetown, Derek Dixon played more minutes than Kyan Evans. That is kind of an indicator of who Hubert likes better and feels more comfortable with. I know they did play a little bit together, which I don't mind, because Derek Dixon's size allows him to play and defend from that 2 spot. What do you do? How do you handle that? If you're Hubert Davis, how do you handle that when things get a little more serious in January and February?
Yeah, I think my guess is that Trimble's back earlier than expected, or like kind of publicly announced. I think you probably get Trimble back in mid-December, at which point I think you see a Kyan Evans Trimble lineup, and Hubert will give him a few games to see if that works, right? And then I think I would throw an over-under out of January 9th, so in between the SMU and Wake Forest game, if Kyan or Derek Dixon is starting. I think that's a very, I could very, very much see a world where, the team's doing okay, they steal a win against Ohio State, but they drop a loss at SMU or something to that effect, and they go ahead and use that as a means of making the change. What are your thoughts?
You could go the whole year and just play Derek Dixon more and Kyan starts. That's, especially with a freshman, that's a viable thing that I think happens occasionally, where the freshman's better, everybody knows he's better, but don't want to hurt the confidence of Kyan Evans. You still need him. I think he can still be a contributor to this team. And you bring Derek Dixon off the bench. I kind of want to see Kyan Evans off the ball. Play him with Trimble at the 1 and Derek Dixon at the 1, and get Kyan Evans in some space and transition, a catch and shoot situation. See what he can do when he doesn't have to handle the ball or even think about running the offense. And he's just kind of flowing and running baseline and operating on the wing there, because that's what made him so attractive at Colorado State. So hopefully they experiment with that a little bit too, and play Dixon and Kyan Evans together.
Yeah, I think getting him off ball will be a good way to also see if this 3-point shooting slump or tax is real, or if it's more of a just playing out of position. So Should we talk about Hubert?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You breached a good topic there. I mean, I think if things kind of trend the way they're going, I mean, there's no reason to move on from Hubert, right? I mean, the Kentucky win was huge on the road.
Yeah.
The support's behind him. Like I just think hopefully with the GM now and him, if they work in lockstep, they'll be able to keep doing this and bring in good rosters. They kind of follow this. The money's there. Like I don't think the money's the issue. So I mean, as long as he keeps winning at this level this season, they're gonna bring him back. The AD change is also interesting.
Newmark, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, unfortunately, I think we're in a situation where it's not clear cut for me, right? I think everyone was kind of hoping for hey, it's easy to see, we're good to go. I think we're trending in the right direction. I think, but with the Newmark kind of coming in as the new AD, and does he want kind of to make his own hire? I also the knock on Hubert isn't that he isn't capable of good seasons, right? We've seen that. The knock is the volatility.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the back corner, in the periphery vision of the season, I'm kind of keeping an eye on all right, well, we got Maximo Adams, I think. We're in competition for Dylan Mingo. This class for high school recruiting isn't as good as years prior, so a lot of this can be portal based, but you're probably you're replacing your 4 and your 5, who are the engine of the team right now. You're going to be replacing Trimble. You could assume that Derek Dixon's got a spot. You can assume that Luka, if he wants to come back, has a spot, and hopefully there's some backcourt continuity. But I guess my question would be are you comfortable again living and dying by the portal? Because that's exactly what's going to happen right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also, yeah, Hubert has proven not to be the best. I mean, say that. He's got E. Jackson, he got Drake Powell, he got Caleb Wilson. I think money speaks. I don't think he's the best recruiter without money. Yeah. I think, and when it comes down to two teams with the same amount of money, he loses. You look over at Duke and what they're doing. I mean, they get any player they want, pretty much. I think people just I mean, this is what I do for work. Every prospect, it seems out of the top 20, it's always Duke is the offer I want. Duke is the school I want to go to. And how can UNC get back there? Well, I'm not sure with Hubert. He just has a bad reputation in terms of development and 5 stars coming in. And, Drake Powell had some words to say about how he was developed. Ian Jackson transfers. Caleb Wilson. That's why Caleb Wilson is so important, because he is playing above his expectations as a recruit coming in. Also, I don't know. I can't talk about the in-game X's and O's and what he's really doing with action. Spencer comes in and kind of talks about that a little bit and what he texts me on the side. But I'm not sure Hubert gives UNC the best chance to win in a heads-up game in terms of making changes, evolving within the game, making adjustments and sets and stuff, and kind of being an in-game. I think there's a lot of coaches that would beat him head-to-head. In terms of being
he's better at that though this season. I have read again, I'm not an expert on X's and O's stretch, but I have read a few folks saying that there has been improvement in that regard. So good to see. But I agree with you. Head to head against a tactician, I don't know if I'd choose him, 1-on-1 against Izzo or some of the other ones out there. So
then you're hey, you just pumping money and hoping you hit in the transfer portal, right? You're just or you figure out something in terms of recruiting where you can get a couple top 40 guys, develop them and get them to stay and pay them. And then you're kind of building. Yeah, because just like football, we can't have this 9 new players every year. You want to bring back players. You want to find the right players who want to be at Carolina, but also are good. I think Derek Dixon is the poster child for that right now. Maybe Isaiah Dennis too, but it's a tough time. And I have no idea what Newmark wants. Chapel Hill guy, maybe the glory days of Dean Smith and Hubert Davis is important to him. Will he hire outside the family? I hope if UNC makes another hire, it's the best available coach. I look at Dusty May at Michigan and think about, man, if UNC had just moved on Dusty May at some point, that guy is a stud.
I know, man.
All right, I think that's enough basketball. Let's go quickly on football. 5 minutes on football.
Real quick. I had a guy come up to me in Charlotte this past weekend, so giving him he's a loyal listener of Big Hitters Only. Morgan nice. Brought up wanted to mention that he's enjoyed the fact that Hubert's playing more of a traditional Carolina offense, feeding through the two bigs as opposed to relying on the backcourt. So that was an interesting plug. So give him a quick
Well,
shout
it
out.
helps have Caleb. I mean, if you have a
Yeah.
forward like Caleb, who is a freak
Yeah.
athlete, you
Top
can
5
play
player
him.
in the country at the 4. Yeah, you're gonna play through the bigs.
Yeah, I mean, he fixes so many issues defensively and dunker like that and transition, everything. It's
Well,
awesome. All right, we talked about football a lot on this podcast already with Andrew Jones and Kyle Peterson. So make sure you listen to those. I think it's going to go last. You have listened to those. Mike, give me your overarching feelings as a fan on the Belichick Lombardi regime exiting the 25 season, entering the offseason and the 26 season. Elevator pitch or elevator summary here.
Yeah, I think the future of Carolina football is going to be determined in the next few weeks here. And as a fan, if it goes the way that I kind of expect it to go, that will be a relief in the sense that I won't have to stay as invested as I have in years prior. I think that basically, if they don't make a big splash in the portal, if they don't address some glaring needs and get a hold of things, we're going to know that next year is going to be a repeat of this year. And we'll know that will be the end of the Belichick Lombardi era in Chapel Hill. I think most fans are pretty much convinced that there's really not any way to turn this around. There is some recruiting momentum in the high school ranks, right? And that's better than not. But also you have a higher ranking when you take the number of players that we're taking in the high school class. Those players are not going to be instant impact guys, maybe 2 to 3 at best case scenario. So you really need to hit a home run in the portal. And if they can't do that, which I have no reason to believe or no confidence that they will, next year's going to be more of the same. And we have a much more difficult schedule. So not exactly jumping up and down. Hopefully the offensive coordinator hire is a good one. It'd be nice if we could make a hire without some sort of nepotism or controversy. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like basketball where you kind of have that Jordan brand and that UNC basketball brand to help carry you in some of these transfer portal acquisitions. Like UNC football is not like an exciting, awesome place to go to right now. So you're not only competing, it's Carolina football. You're competing with 40 other programs that are kind of your level of money. Big Ten, SEC, other ACC schools, and Big 12 schools are the teams you're competing with for these prospects. So it's a harder problem to solve in terms of landing these transfers. And look, if they get a couple, they have to hit. You have to hit 75% of your transfers. You bring in 20, gotta hope this team needs probably 15 to fill it the 2 deep to compete. You talk about retainment a lot in previous interviews. There's gonna be some retainment. That's great. Hopefully overpay for retainment and then kind of take some chances hitting the portal. There's also some mindset that seems like you're kind of resigned to. It's like, me too. It's like, shit, save this money for the next coach. If you're gonna fire, if you know the chances are you're gonna fire Lombardi and Belichick. In my mind as a fan, why are we wasting money that's gonna go away?
Save the money for the buyout. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I on one hand, I do like the show of force, right? I do want to show any coach watching that, hey, even if the coaching is abysmal, we're going to spend money on players, right? I think that's a better message to any potential candidate than sitting by and saving money. I think earlier this season, I kind of either texted you or told you I would love to see us get rid of Belichick. This isn't working. But then once everyone started getting rid of their coach, it very much became we should hold if we can between the buyout and who will be available. I think we all see the writing on the wall, and I think everyone that follows the program with any level of attention knows that there's just something broken there. I don't think this has been assembled in the best way, and I don't really see it being fixed. I'd love to be wrong, but even if they go 7-5, okay, 7-5 against a tough schedule, that's great. Mm-hmm. Belichick will be 74 the following season, 27 season. So okay, what's the real point of that? Are we expecting one getting better every year until he's 80? I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
it's probably something the administration and the board trustees should have thought of before they hired a 73-year-old. who, wasn't very successful in his last couple of years in New England. It's hard to it's difficult to see through the Belichick name. But yeah, I mean, it's going to end. It's like, is it going to end in 2 years or 1 year or 3 years? Like, it's going to end the next 4 years, if not 1 year.
I think with conference realignment in the near future, we need to make a move after next year. To be honest.
And your point about showing, now UNC is kind of trying to play big boy football with the transfer portal and recruiting and coaches' salaries, which is good to see. I mean, dude, we're paying $10 million to Belichick. Like a lot of the SEC salaries in these new contracts were like $7 million, $6 million, $8 million. Like
the two guys that were mentioned before Belichick in last year's coaching search were John Summerall, who's now the incoming coach at the University of Florida, and Matt Campbell, who is the incoming coach at Penn State. So like, those are the guys that Carolina could have had. The guys good enough to coach at big programs in the SEC and Big Ten. And thanks to good old John Pryor, we ended up with Belichick.
And Alex Golesh at Auburn, I really like him from USF.
Yeah.
Great young coach. I think just 2 years at USF. I mean, hopefully there'll be a couple of names.
Yeah, I would have even taken Chesney from like, what are we doing? Oh God.
Yeah, you just hope that we learn from this and that when the next hire happens, it's like, all right, let's go a little younger. Let's go experienced, successful G5 head coach or, someone who's maybe at a lower P4 school that's looking to move up. Like, I think that's the move, like proven as a head coach at a high level and consistently won. Winning translates. We've seen it all the time. But yeah, I think some of these SEC coaches that were just hired, they'll be gone in 3 years too. Like the math is against them that not everyone can win. It's an intriguing story to follow. It's embarrassing at times. The math behind it's super interesting. As a NBA now, like understanding, kind of like how the math behind this is insane.
Yeah.
You're kind of like betting on players. You're trying to find the diamonds in the rough and like. And also, like, the money that's been given to UNC, I always think about this. Like, these guys are just throwing away money to pay for these high school and college kids.
Yeah.
Asking for money. It's not like you're investing. You're essentially trying to invest in your enjoyment of seeing wins, but you're not making some financial
Sports are crazy,
investment.
man. Sports are crazy. They're one of the few areas of life where you can just burn money just because. So.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else, Mike, you want to talk about? You good?
No, man. I think we hit the major wickets. Let's go. Thank God it's basketball season. So
yeah, let's talk a little plan here for BHO. We got 2 lesser games. Look at the schedule. South Carolina Upstate, East Tennessee State. We might take a little holiday break here. If anything big happens on the football front, we'll get back on here. But potentially the next time you hear from us will be maybe after the Ohio State basketball game with a recap there. Appreciate you guys listening. Check out Rowback, BHO20, last sell here. Get your Christmas shopping done. BHO28, check out anything on the website, not just UNC stuff. So any fans out there for other schools or across the board, get your dad, uncle, mom, aunt, niece, nephews, Rowback gear. Thanks, Mike, and thanks for listening.